Welcome to Two Old Guys Reviewing Entertainment. Today we look at a Jerry Seinfeld movie that's premiered on Netflix. It's called Unfrosted, and it is, at least ostensibly, the story of the rivalry between two major cereal companies in 1960 or 60 some year, where they were both trying to create a new breakfast, what do we call it? Pastry.
Yes.
And of course, the pastry they're talking about is Pop-Tarts. And it's based on a true story in the sense that in that year, the Post and cereal company and the Kellogg cereal company were actually rivals and actually trying to create a new breakfast cereal. The backstory is that Jerry Seinfeld and his friends were sitting around one day joking about Pop-Tarts, as only Jerry Seinfeld and his friends can.
Because it was definitely a subject about nothing for them to discuss.
Yeah, perfect Seinfeld topic. And they realized that Pop-Tarts were a truly revolutionary, changed the world. So revolutionary, they changed the world. Why? Because for the first time, they didn't have milk. You didn't have cereal. And you can heat it up and it's got fruit in it. At any rate, that was an excuse for Jerry Seinfeld and his friends to write what I considered a hilarious movie. It's not a laugh out loud, slap your knee movie. It's but I just love this movie. It is, they take nothing seriously.
Right. And
in telling this.
Quite frankly, if you like Jerry Seinfeld, you're going to like the movie. Okay.
Yeah.
And by the way, even though I don't eat them anymore because I'm a vegan, I used to love Pop-Tarts, and you didn't even have to heat them up, especially the ones that with the brown sugar cinnamon. You could just eat them right out of the package. Heating them up was only delaying the enjoyment of it all. So it is definitely an American institution. It is silly. It is goofy. And it is
zany. Somebody reviewed it and called it zany. It's pretty zany.
Right.
You know this movie reminded me of a mad world with Jonathan Winters from many years ago. And it included, not only was it zany and crazy and silly in the sense that it was a chase, movie was a chase. But what the commonality is with Jerry Seinfeld's movie is it included every known comedian in the world at that time. It's every American comedian, maybe. And that's what Seinfeld did. He got all his friends to appear in this movie. They all do cameos. They're all here, there. I just loved it.
It worked. Also, I'm a big fan, longtime fan of Billy Crystal. And it's the same kind of humor. It's like this understated New York humor, not take yourself too seriously while you're being serious. And it was just pure Jerry Seinfeld. As a matter of fact, another part of the backstory is that apparently Seinfeld has a relationship with Netflix because I think they were drinking coffee in cars or something like that, a series he had on for a while where he has his buddies and they share a cup of coffee and they drive cars around, stuff like that. So it's that kind of, if you like any of that kind of stuff, you're probably really going to enjoy this movie. It's about an hour and a half, just enjoyable. Nothing serious. It's not going to solve any of the problems of the world other than maybe help you forget about them for an hour and a half. And it was just enjoyable to watch. It was really goofy. It's like $1.98 beauty show. just sit there and enjoy it.
One of the shame of this movie is that apparently some people just didn't get it. I saw this movie described at one point as a documentary, and it's got nothing to do with being a documentary. It's a drama. It's a dramatic movie. It's a comedy. And it's just so well done. I don't know why anybody would think it's a documentary other than its basic premise is based on a real rivalry between two cereal companies.
Let's give it its due. If it was a documentary of any kind, it was a mockumentary.
That's accurate, I think. Yeah. But it's so well written. These guys who made the movie, Seinfeld wrote it, produced it, directed it and wrote it with other people. But they're all so talented, and the jokes, I have to tell you, the situations are very funny in themselves. They don't necessarily relate to anything real. For instance, the rivalry between the two cereal companies, it turns out there's a bad guy. Well, it's not the cereal companies, it's the milk industry. Why the milk industry? Well, because the cereal companies were, for the first time, trying to create a breakfast meal that wouldn't need milk.
No.
And I have to tell you, it's just these guys took every opportunity to make a joke about anything, right. And particularly the '60s. If you're a baby boomer and you were around in the '60s, you will appreciate a lot of the jokes about the clothing, about the names, the famous people of the '60s. I think they bring in President Kennedy. They spare no one, and I loved it. It's filled with little jokes and big jokes.
Yeah, and the nice thing is you use the term inside jokes, but you're on the inside. They're not trying to. In other words, you're included in it because if you're of a certain age, you're going to get it all. Okay, and it's like, oh yeah, right. That's something that you would probably in the backyard over a barbecue or something like that, speaking to friends and talking about this kind, you'd make up the same kind of jokes. But in any event, we, from the balcony, you can see that we have this really exotic looking balcony, this spare no expenses set behind us. We recommend that you go to Netflix and enjoy yourself.
For more on Celebrating Act Two, visit our webpage, follow us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, and tell your friends. Celebrating Act Two is the user manual for the second half of your life.